Okay, so as you can see, we're approximately halfway through the decaling. We've actually done the actual aircraft itself. There's a few things that don't sort of add up with it and something you might want to check. I've sort of made do the best I can, but some of the positioning of the decal callouts especially do tend to be a little bit far off. The main trouble one is this one down here. It calls basically for to put number 2, which is the ejection seat sticker in and things like that, decal in there. But the thing is, it's actually attached to this one, so you end up cutting it off and everything. So you're better off having a look at your own reference shots, put them in. The only thing I've done that's slightly offhand is that this little rescue panel here, this little yellow one right here. Now the thing with that is that it's actually supposed to be a little bit low. It's supposed to be sort of midway down. I find it's just a little bit too high. Only trouble with that is obviously because it's all engraved and the engraving is showing through on this. If we was to move it down, then you'd have it above. So it's something I didn't realise at the time. But if you wanted to, you could move it further down. But because of that, the rescue doesn't fit around the lump on the side here. So what you actually have to do is cut the rescue bit off, reposition that and so on. And the same goes for the other side as well. We have this one here. The rescue's been cut away and lowered so it does fit down the side nose there. Apart from that, to be honest, they go on absolute treat. Considering the size of this back one here, which is a giant one, 422s are separate, but it's one big one that goes on there. So all I did was slip the top here so it conforms better in there. Couple of coats, and to be honest, I didn't use a softener. I used X-28. I found it to work better than a softener. It made it shrivel up more and get in there a lot tighter. So it's gone down and they've gone on really, really nice, considering, like, you know, you do tend to always think about, you know, sort of kit decals being a bit thick and that, but as I said, they are cartograph and they do work exceptionally well. So we've got the underside as well on there, really looking nice. So the other thing we've got to do now on there is probably around about, I don't know, maybe 100 decals all on there, especially underneath. Okay, so the next thing up is to do all the pylons and everything else like that. Again, these are absolutely covered in decals as well. Hence your second sheet, you get a major one like this. Okay, then you've got all the ones for the weapons and everything else and the fuel tanks and things like that. You have got a couple of extras which are quite nice down here, which to take note of. This one down here in the bottom corner is for these here that we ended up doing by hand and buffing up and everything else. So really you don't have to worry about doing those. You could actually use this one down here, but it calls it an extra. Well, in theory it's not an extra, it's actual for the APU, the starting unit on the actual jet, the jet fuel starter, sorry. This is the exhaust for it, so you could use that one, so don't be fooled by it, but I only spotted it afterwards. But on the decal sheets, I must admit, you get all these ones that say extras, which is great because some of them you can make a right hash of, especially the walkway ones. You get extra ones of it as well, which is quite handy. Speaking of walkway ones, we've got the one around the back here that comes down and then to the front. I'd cut it to length because obviously in reality it comes right up to the front here to meet this other one, but because we've actually got these conformal fuel tanks on there, we've cut it to a shorter length and put it in there. But apart from that, the little niggle with this front ones around the caution areas at the front and with your rescue areas, apart from that, they all went on very well, especially, and I have to say, you've got a large one across the spine here. Now that one itself is a real nightmare to get to sit in. I just put it down there and gave it a good coating of X-28 and left it overnight. I've come back this morning and it's absolutely fine. So I'm really happy how those have travelled. Now what we're going to do is come along with our nice knife now, and these are all dry, pop it in the panel lines and things like that and just drag it around all the panel lines because we want to open them up again. Okay, so when we come with the wash will flow through and won't have any problems. So usual thing, nice sharp blade, keeping it as a shallow angle just in case you catch and don't drag. Okay, do that to all the decals where there's a panel line and some riveting detail and give it another coat. You'll find that they'll conform in there. They really will suck in there nice and tight. So when you come along with the wash will go right through all your decals and that without being just wiped away too easy. So I'm going to get those done. They'll get another coat. I'm going to get on and decal the pylons and the fuel tanks and everything else. Then we can get it up on its gear and really start to push on. Right, so we've done all the weapons pylons, so we were saying quite tricky, especially some of these, getting them in the right place, because again, the instructions, they show the panel lines and everything, but you know, I don't know which one's correct. I'm not sure if it's the pylon that's correct or it's the instructions, but anyway, they don't line up, so your best guesstimate is to check your references before putting them on. So as I say, we've gone around this one. And now we've done little things like these chaff buckets at the top, which are a lovely little touch because it's a 2-layer one. You've got silver, yellow, and then obviously you've got the red squares over the top. Really nice. As I say, we've got them on the bottom as well, all like that. So it's really looking very, very nice. Now we're going around and checking it everywhere, looking for silvering. Now I spoke about this a lot before. Silvering is just where there's air pockets stuck underneath the clear carrier film, which gives it that sort of silver reflective look. So the big areas obviously we're looking for is the tail to make sure, but we have rescribed in the panel lines and we're okay there. So we are just trying and catch it in the light. Now it is one of those things where it's quite tricky to see it in some lights, yet you come along with a flat coat, put it on, it stands out a mile. But there is little ways you can get around it if you have got it. So we're just having a look round there now, and we all seem to be okay, checking them out. Just remember, if you have got any holes or pin marks, just come along with a pin, prick them a little bit more. Obviously you use Mr. Serps, or as we've done in our case, we use a little bit of thinners to take care of that. And we're really happy how that one is now. So really our next big stage is to crack on now with giving this a gloss coat. Now the purpose of a gloss coat really is to seal in the decals and to protect them through the next few stages we're going to be doing. The next stage after this will also be a wash. It can have a wash over. This will accentuate all the panel line detail and everything else like that. And then afterwards it will have a flat coat, or we can use pigments, or if you want to do some more forms of extreme weathering, it will protect your decals, it will protect your paintwork and everything else. So if you're happy about it at this particular stage, now you can come out. Now when we're doing glossing, you can use anything. You can use obviously purpose-built glosses, anything else. You can use some clear if you've got some of this stuff, or you can use the new formula, which is just the same apart from it's a little bit milky colour and smells quite fragrant. So what you do is you just grab a little bit of Bounty. Now a lot of people ask me about this. It's one of those things, you don't have to be frightened of it at all. Move the water out of the way. It's one of those things where you can't really go wrong. Just put it down and you'll be okay. Just pretend you're spraying a normal level. So what we're going to do is we're turning the compressor up a little bit. Grab our airbrush. Okay, we'll use some of the new stuff. A little bit of a shake. Shake it to wake it. Okay, then we're avoiding all the bubbles. As I say, you can probably see in the colour cut, this stuff's quite milky looking. But the big difference between this and the old one is obviously it's very milky looking, it's a little bit thinner, and it smells. Apart from that, it does exactly the same as anything else. Blow through and make sure you've got no nasties in your paintwork coming out, okay? Then all we're going to do is turn this over and very lightly put a coat on here. Quite a light coat to start with, just like so. Alright, and then it's all getting very foggy in here, so I'll open up a window and get the extractor on in a minute. Just like that. Quick turn around. And there we go. Now it's going to need a couple of coats to build this up. That's just one coat on there to start with, and then what we'll do is obviously we're going to come back in about sort of 5 minutes when this has dried off a little bit, come back with another coat and give it another one, and perhaps even a third one. After that, we're going to allow this to dry for 24 hours to totally go off completely hard and set. The reason for doing that is if you're going to come along with washes and various things afterwards, when you're putting those on, what can happen is that the surface isn't totally dry, you're using scrubbing motions, things like that, and before you know it, the wash is stuck onto your paintwork. So that's really what we want to avoid. I'm going to carry on down here. We're just doing everything else that's going to need it. So obviously we've got the weapons, pylons, we've got these giant fuel tanks to get done, so we'll get them all glossed up as well, and then we're going to leave it 24 hours, come back and then get on with the weathering and final assembly. Okay, so now time to give it a wash. Now, I say the easiest way to do a wash is to use, obviously, my wash. Okay, this is the Flory Models dark wash. Now, the great thing with the dark wash is it's somewhere between black and brown. Okay, it's like a grimy, dirty colour. So it's not as stark as it is if you use a black, because obviously we do a black as well. Trouble is with a black is that if you're using it, especially over lighter colours, it really does stand out. If you're doing it over a dark camo, perhaps greens and dark greys, things like that, then the black works quite well. But if you're using it over lighter colours, especially grey, then the dark dirt is probably the better way to go. So usual thing, this one, that coat has had a coat of clear gloss over the top, or you could use satin or flat. This is more of a satin finish on this one, so it's got a little bit of texture to bite to. If you did it over a gloss coat, it would just purely stick to panel lines. If you're using it over a flat coat, it will give you an incredibly grimy, dirty finish because it gets caught in the texture of the paint. So what we're going to do is give this a good old shake up. Okay, it's clay based, so obviously sometimes it sort of separates and things like that. We get a bit on our brush, and then all we do is liberally put this right the way over everything. So we're going to cover the entire model with it. We're not just going to pick an area like following a particular panel line. We want to give the overall aircraft quite a grimy type of look. Okay, so we're just going to go everywhere with this one. So just make sure you're going everywhere. Now if you find it bubbles up and beads up and doesn't stick to the surface, i.e. it's not got like a smooth finish like that, just literally keep rubbing at it and you'll find that it will work its way in, because all it does, it will break the surface tension of it. If you find it still bubbles up and you're not really getting the look you're after, just add a couple of drops of washing up liquid or dishwater soap, okay, and that will just help break the surface tension. We've got a little bit going on just down here. If we bring you in, you can probably see it. If we just leave these pure towels out of the way, you can probably see it on this leading edge down here, how it's not exactly sticking brilliantly to the area. So just keep rubbing and you'll find that it will go and it will work its way in. So okay, we're just going to brush this right the way over everywhere. With the wash, it doesn't matter how long it's on, so don't think you have to get this off within 20 minutes. You can leave this overnight to go off if you wanted to. Okay, so literally don't worry about it at all. It's very, very forgiving. Now, on various other DVDs I've done, the main ones that spring to mind is things like, such as the Su-24 build. I show airbrushing wash on and really weathering it up really heavy. That's a Russian jet which is caked in it, where this is a little bit more refined, shall we say. And they keep their jets pretty clean. Normal kitchen towel, okay, or kitchen roll. Use a good quality one. The cheaper ones, as soon as you wet them, they fall apart and leave fibres all over your model and everything else like that. That's something we don't want to happen. But basically, all you do, wet your cloth. To be honest, I lick it. Okay, rub most of it off the back of your hand. Okay, and then just circular motions. Okay, on your model to show it coming through. Just like that. So there we go, we've got the panel lines all showing through. Quite straightforward. So if we just give it a bit of a rub, hopefully what we do, we'll show it all in the panel lines still. And all those sort of watery marks that you've got off of it, you don't have to worry about at all, because they will just go away. So if I just show you on this wing, once you've almost got it all off, okay, cut to the direction of the airflow, okay, and just drag it backwards, okay, just like that. So if you have got any natural bits left over, okay, still in the wash, it will look like it just grime coming out and things like that. And there we go, that's that wing done now with the wash on it. Very straightforward, and obviously there's no staining, there's no marks left behind or anything else like that. And the secret to that is over a satin finish, so it's got enough to grip in all the panel lines and everything else like that, okay, but the paintwork is totally dry, so is the decal area and everything else. So all we're going to do now, exactly the same thing, wet the cloth and go round. Now if you get to a point where you've taken it out completely of the panel line, don't worry, you can go back, put a drop more in it, away you go. If you're in a situation where it hasn't gone in a panel line at all, to be honest, I can see it back here, the chances are the reason that's happened in this area is because the paintwork's too thick, okay? You might be able to see it just back here, there's a little access panel there, okay? The paintwork's too thick, it's smoothed it out, it's got nothing to cling to, so when you wipe it, it just wipes out. So what you can actually do is pop round there, clean out that panel line, which is what we'll do a little bit later on, put a tiny bit more wash in there. The wash will go in the panel line, so it doesn't matter that you scrape the paint out, okay? And that is it, but keep your cloth quite moist but not wet. If you make it wet, you rehydrate the clay and then it just wipes off of everything. Okay, so you want to keep it moist and damp to be able to get things moving without being overly wet. Otherwise all you're going to do is literally wipe it clean out of all the panel lines. Okay, and there we have it. Wash all off, and I think you'll agree we've got one very, very nice SUFA coming to life now. Now, obviously, we spoke about before various areas. So what we've done down the back here, well, you can see it with the glare of the camera, but we got showing quite nicely, okay, on this area, and we've got panel lines, no problem at all, they're all okay. This side, unfortunately, we've lost just a couple on this side. So what you can do now is just rescribe those in, okay, and then literally pop around with a little bit of more wash to put them in. Now if I just have a look, sometimes you can get these things here. Now these are, to be honest, Hasegawa is called their tri-set, but in here you've got various shapes for the various areas, so hopefully you can almost make a match out of it. If you can't, sometimes they are fine enough that you'll be able to follow them through anyway. Now I'm just looking for my rescribing pin. All we've got here is a needle, not very sharp one admittedly these days, okay, in a pin vise, so it looks just like this, okay, and as you can see it's bent at a bit of an angle, and that's because I like to get in there and do really, really close work to it. Now following something like this isn't as straightforward as you might think, okay. What we'll do is we'll just pop this off to give us a bit better room, but what we're going to try and do here is just follow the panel line very, very gently. And then, because the needle is bent, it should follow the actual panel line itself. Okay, and we're just going to do it quite slowly. And some of it, to be honest, it's following, others it's not. But what we're trying to do is just scratch through the paint to make. Now, because this one, you know, on this particular shapes, it's got here a more oval shapes. I don't think I've got one with the squares. Check. No, the other ones I've got are sort of triangle shapes and everything, so there's no way around this. So what we're going to do is literally just follow the panel line around. Okay, in. So we're just cutting through the paint like this. If we bring you in a little bit, you see somewhat what we're doing, okay? So we've cut that one in. Now we're just going to do the same with this other one here. Okay, just going to take our time with it very slowly and scrape through the paint. And that's the best way to really do these. Okay, and then obviously we've got the riveting, so we're just pushing the needle in for the re-riveting. Okay. We go around there. Then we've got some of these here which I'd like to make a little bit more of. And usually this is just a simple job of either where you've sanded near it, or perhaps you've over painted it. Now to be honest, we did do this area 2 or 3 times to tidy it up, and that's probably all that's happened. And because I went a bit mad with the paint and put it on quite a wet coat, that we've obviously lost the definition in the riveting detail and the panel lines and everything else. So consequently the wash has got virtually nothing to stick to. And obviously the sharper the lines are, the better they are. Okay, so we're just going to pop some more rivets around up here. So as I say, sometimes something as a needle in a vise like this is the best and easiest way. Okay, and you don't have to follow every single one, but if you can see them, it certainly makes it a bit more effective. So there we go. As you can see, we've redone that entire area now. So have a look around your model. If you've got any areas like that and you think, well look, it's looking a little bit bare, you know, it's sort of ruining it. So now it matches in a lot better with that side. Okay, but that one's quite faint and that one now is very strong. So all we'll do is come along with our wash, just shake, Okay, this is the original wash we used before. Alright, so we just take a bit on the old brush, okay, and we're just going to pop it in these little areas around just down here, and then obviously we'll get the wash off, and that hopefully will accentuate it. Okay, and the other areas, perhaps, oops, he says he just knocks his bottle of wash over. Just mop that up. Okay, so what obviously you can do is, just grab the cloth for a minute. This area where you haven't got much in at all, okay, is to take some of the wash and give it another coat, and then you can take it out more carefully perhaps, and that way it will leave it in a little bit better. So we'll pop some of these just back in, just a touch in where we think we've overdone it. Okay, and then hopefully those will come out a lot better. So we'll let those areas dry. As soon as they've dried, what we do, we can come back to it, wipe them off again. If they need rescribing and revisiting detail, we do just the same again. If not, if we're really happy with it, we can get a flat coat on this one and start working on the gear. Okay, so that's those areas tidied up. You can probably see that looks a lot better now. Okay, and we've gone around, we've done a few others. There's a little one down here we've rescribed in, but it's well worth just taking the time, because then it doesn't look like patchy and things like that. So we're really looking the business now. Okay, we're really happy how it is. Now make sure you've got all the wash off that you want to get off. Obviously you might want to leave on for some smudging and dirt and things like that, but all the wash you want off is now the time to get it, because what we're going to do, we're going to actually overcoat now. He says, just spotting another little tiny bit of wash. Okay, so when we overcoat this, whatever's left underneath is going to be stuck there forevermore. Okay, so now is your time just to make sure and go right the way over your model and make sure there's no wash, because as I said, next time you've had it, because it won't come off. The only way you're going to do it is be able to sand through it. Now flat coats, loads of them around. Let's just see what I've got here. We've got a big old bottle of matte acrylic varnish. Okay, I've had for a while. I don't mind it, but I don't find it gives a dead flat finish. This one is more what I call a satin to flat finish, okay? If I want to go for a dead flat finish, i.e. something that looks a bit dusty and very bleached down, the one I like to use is Extra Acrylics Flat Varnish. Now, it's water-based, okay, so you don't have to worry about any sort of, bad chemicals floating around the area. And we've used, apart from the metallizer, acrylics on the entire model. Now, the thing to remember with this is, it is lumpy, it's gooey, it's a bit horrible. But the way I tend to get around that problem is, we give the bottle a good old shake like this. We're going to leave it to one side just for a few minutes over there. Let's just grab a little bit of Bounty, a bit of kitchen roll. Pop that down there. Okay, and what we're going to do is give everything a bit of a flat coat. Now, a bit of that silly me, I've taken all the pylons and that off of various things, so we could do with those back on. So we're really more worried about fuel tanks at the minute. So whilst that is settling back down, because what we're waiting for this to do is to settle back. All the big lumps are going to go to the bottom. It's going to leave then clearer stuff up at the top. So we just pop that one in there. We really just want the fuel tanks to be flatted at the moment, because it's going to get 2 coats of flat. It's going to get its initial one now, which really all that's doing is protecting the actual. Just grab another one. I'll put this together. Big old tanks, I don't like it sitting up. Okay, what it will actually do is just lock it all in place, the wash in place. So when we come around and handle it after more, we're not going to worry about rubbing through the paintwork, and we're not going to worry about actually knocking the wash off or anything else like that. Pylons we leave to one side for the moment. Okay, it's imperative when you spray this, because you're spraying it neat, is it to be as high air pressure as you can possibly get it, okay? So you want it to be somewhere in the region of around about 35 plus air pressure to move this. I'm going to shoot this as maximum. My maximum compressor says it's 50, it's lying. It's probably more like 40, perhaps 42 on a good day. All right, so we're just going to, as you can hear, it's pretty strong. Okay, now there's 2 ways of doing this. You can either decant it first, okay, as in pour it into another bottle and make sure you've got no lumps, or you can be a bit like me and just try and judge it. So all we do is pour it in very slowly and look for lumps. If we see a big lump go in there, we'll stop. Okay, so we've got it in there neat. It's a bit like PVA glue, so we just blow it out. Okay, nice dusty coat. right the way over, and you might even see it on camera that it'll dull down. But what you're trying to do is just to get this all in. Now if you start to see white specks coming through, stop, because what it is, it's having too hard a time spraying it through, and it isn't managing to do it very well. Minding the light, okay. But it should flatten this down, make it all look a little bit more dusty. And any areas you've got decals, it should knock them completely dead, so you've got no areas where you can see. Okay, every now and again check the tip of your thing. You might notice on the bottom we've got a little white ball. That's just build up. You definitely don't want that, because what that will cause is spitting. So we're just popping around it again, and as you can probably see, it's completely killed this off. So we've gone from being quite glossy to now very, very flat, very dead, and that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, we've gone through a colour cup already, alright? So what I'm going to do now is just leave that for a few moments just to dry at the top. Flip it over, we'll do the underside, we'll also do the tanks and the pylons and everything else. Leave it for a couple of hours to totally go off. We really want it to go completely hard, because this stuff does take a little bit of time going on. There again, because we're going to be handling for putting it together and things like that, we're likely to get fingerprints, and we really don't want that at this stage. So I'll just get the other side done. Okay, so the next thing we can work on whilst those bits are over away and drying is the actual undercarriage itself and how that's going to work. Now it's going to be slightly different for us because we're having this in a landing configuration, so obviously the nose wheel will be in the air. So the actual the front nose wheel won't be under compression with the actual the main part itself as it's moulded. So obviously it's probably 3 times the length of that. Hence why we got some plastic rod. Now this, I don't know really, it's probably just being a bit silly, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep both parts of it. So it can either be nose down with weight on wheel, okay, on the front, or it can be extended in the air by using this bit. So what we've done is, we know it's 3 times the length, it extends 3 times as much. Okay, so if we just grab a little razor saw, we're going to make the cut 3 times the length. So I've already marked a little mark on here. So all we do, literally, fine razor saw, just cutting the rod all the way through. Okay, so that one is done just like that now. And then what we'll do is move these out of the way. We'll just square this up a little bit because it's slightly out of shape. So we'll just grab a sanding stick. Okay, and just flatten it down. Now the great thing about using this little bit of styrene rod, which are available, you can buy them in packs of mixed packs of different sizes. This is just a little bit of evergreen. It's hollow. It's got a small little hole in the end of it, which is great because either you can thread a piece of wire through or a pin or something like that to just strengthen up these areas. So what we're going to do now is very carefully remove this from the bottom of the part. Okay, that is off, and it's a nice clean cut as well. So is this one. So what we can do now is basically place a small hole in the end. So we've got a little pin vise here with my small pin vise. Okay, with this one. So we've just got a little 0.5 needle. So what we're going to do right in the middle, we're just going to put a small little hole in said end. Okay, now the thing is, we've got a small little gap right here at the top as well. Okay, so if we screw through too far with the pin vise, we're going to come through there and it will make this extremely weak. So we've only done a small little hole just like that. Get rid of that, you might be able to see better. In the end, just there. And then what we'll do is, we're just going to shave off fraction of the end of this one as well. So we're just going to cut it off the bottom apart. That's gone a little bit right, so we're just going to square that off and flatten it down. Okay, same thing again, another small little hole goes in here. Again, not too far. And what we have, just for the moment, you can replace it with a little bit of steel if you wanted to, but if you buy the multi-packs, what should happen is one part will go inside the other, just like this, you see. So you know we can actually use this bit just for a moment, just to see how this is going to work. So we're just going to take just a section off of this. Okay, we're just going to snugly fit that in the end, just up there. Then we'll take a small little part for the bottom. Okay, and we're just going to fit it into the base of this one. So hopefully you're following what I'm going to try and do here. So as you can see, we've got one part in each one now, just like this. Okay, so then we can hopefully come along with our replacement strut. Will fit in the middle there, and it will go in there, and now it is at full extension. Okay, now if we wanted to, we can just make another one now, okay, a little bit shorter to the original size as we've done here, or even bore that one out if you wanted to. Okay, just like this bit, okay, to the same type of size. So that way now what we can do is redo these suspension struts, which are going to go down the length of it, okay, which will be one on this side and then one like that. Okay, will be at full stretch as if it is just ready coming in for landing and things like that. So that's just a quick easy little fix for doing that one. So if you wanted to, you could glue that in place, you know, and do it like that. The other way is, what's great with this one, if you wanted to have it on the ground and have it turning, is that it's now fully operational and works as a nose wheel steering system. So it's totally up to you how you do it. So that's that one, is how we're going to do that. Then obviously we'll glue those in. The main gear itself we're going to be making no changes to whatsoever, just as does come in the kit. So we've got the various parts there which will pop together. It's very straightforward, just follow the instructions how they go. So they all need to be painted, so does everything there. The other thing we've got at the same time is wheeling. Now this is Aries' little sideline they're doing now into resin wheels and things like that, as separate. Sometimes you can have them in full kits and everything, but literally it is just the wheels. So when you look at these, the biggest difference between these and the kit parts is not only do you get a little bit of wire, which is great for making brake lines, but obviously we're going to be using wiring from the electrical system on this one, but you get quite nicely detailed Michelin tyres. Okay, I don't know how well you'll be able to see that in the writing, but you've actually got Michelin tyres written on the side of them. They're nicely grooved, everything else like that. But also we get separate hubs, and it's great having separate hubs because these can be sprayed white, these can be done black, okay, and then we marry them together at the end and perhaps a little bit of wash just to get rid of any seam lines, and it's job done, which is a lot easier than it is when you see it on the kit part themselves. Obviously we've got no you know, actual separate hubs and things like that, and obviously we've got no writing on the tyres and little things, and it's just little things because what we can do is we can actually dry brush those a lighter shade of black just to make the writing stand out a little bit more, just like that. So we've got nose wheel and two main wheels. Pretty straightforward getting these off because you've got these little plastic bits down the side, but these wheels are a little bit fatter as well. If you look at them in reality, they are slightly fatter on the F-16. So what you can do, you can either snap them all off like this and get rid of it and then just cut the last bit. Again, we're dealing with resin, so make sure you're in a very well ventilated area and everything else like that, because obviously health first. I'm only going to cut one, the others and sanding I will do totally outside, but that's our wheel. And then obviously you've got the centres, and then these will go on, have to be cut off and put straight on. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get these done, get them all cleaned up, get the hubs off, and then we'll get together for spraying this all up, and obviously then we've got some decals to go onto those, and then they can be fitted to the 16.